And we are back. And we just finished watching 1954's Magnificent Obsession. It's not rated according to IMDB, but it clocks in at 1 hour and 48 minutes and comes to us from the lovely Douglas Sirk, the king of the melodramas. This was written by Lloyd C. Douglas, the novel, and a screenplay by Robert Blees, and an adaptation by Wells Root, based upon the screenplay by Sarah Y. Mason, and another screenplay credit to Victor Heerman, Heerman, Heerman.
Yeah, that's probably right.
And some uncredited writing thing to Finley Peter Dunne. A lot of people in the back there. This is the story of, as IMDb says, a rich playboy whose recklessness inadvertently causes the death of a prominent doctor, tries to make amends to his widow, and falls for her in the process. This is just over-the-top melodrama.
Yeah, this was nuts. This was ridiculous.
With, like, religious undertones, right?
There's definitely, like, religious undertones. The doctor's friend, I was surprised he just didn't, like, fade
into the ether
at the end after, like, smiling and giving, like, a thumbs up.
Yeah. Or, like, morph into Jesus.
I honestly, I thought that was going to happen. There's one scene where he's going to operate, and the guy is, like, in the operating theater, the little window above them, and he's sort of, like, looking down at them with, like, this light coming from below him. I was like, they should just superimpose Jesus on him, give him the thumbs up, and then just have him go just, like, fade into mist.
There was also that, like,
yeah,
kind of
every
music.
time they showed him.
Yeah. Well, not even just him, but, like, during certain parts of the film. I love Douglas Sirk because his movies are just so ridiculous, but this one really takes the cake.
Yeah.
What'd you think?
I mean, I'm not, you're the expert on the older movies. This was over the top. This was ridiculous. There's that one scene where I was just stunned by her reaction. He wants to marry her, and she's just like, but I can't marry you. I don't want to embarrass you with my condition. Or I'm not worthy of you, or some
she said,
crazy nonsense. And I'm just like, what the hell were they doing to women in the 50s? That this was like a normal reaction to being proposed to. It's just crazy.
Yeah, it was. Well, I mean, from start to finish. I mean, so she's married to Dr. Phillips.
Yeah. Do we ever see Dr. Phillips?
No, we never see Dr. Phillips.
Just kept under a tarp the entire time.
I mean, he dies off screen, so...
Yeah, he has a heart attack, and he would have survived if his resuscitator...
had been there.
Had been at the house, because he had his own resuscitator. But
because Bobby Merrick capsized his boat.
Capsized his super boat. He had like this rocket boat that he's just like recklessly tearing through a lake with.
Yeah.
And he's just a total prick.
Played by the lovely Rock Hudson.
Yeah, like his mechanics or henchmen or whatever were like, hey, should we look at it? And he's just like, I don't pay you to look at it. I pay you to look at it, or whatever he says. And then he hops back in the rocket boat.
You were like, oh my God, what a jerk.
Yeah, he's a total prick. He's like ridiculous, over the top prick.
Yeah. He's like young, rich,
just doesn't care.
Doesn't give a shit. Yeah.
Yeah, he's like just rocketing through a lake with some random woman that he just doesn't give a crap about.
I mean, I read I'd heard about this film. I'd never seen it. This is my first time watching it. I'd heard about this film. I'd always wanted to see it. TCM decided to play it, and I said to you, we have to watch this. I even set an alarm for it, and I mean, as far as I'm concerned, it didn't disappoint, because I love nonsense movies, and this absolutely, from top to bottom, is just a nonsense movie.
It's the most ridiculous story. I remember the guy, when he's introducing the film, he's just like, Sirk hated it, or hated the script, and was just like, all right, we're going to try and make something out of this idiotic story.
Yeah.
Like, he read the book,
yeah,
and was just like, he couldn't make heads or tails of it.
Yeah, yeah. But Jane Wyman wanted him to do it, yeah.
Didn't make any sense to him, but Jane Wyman insisted. So he was just like, all right, let's see what we could do with this turd.
I think it did well.
It was nuts.
I mean, 1950s audiences were definitely not discerning, I don't think. I mean, they just went to the movies.
They were more starved for entertainment. Movies weren't coming out every week.
Sucks to be them. We got streaming and shit.
Yeah. We got like 18 films coming out every Wednesday and Friday.
At least. Yeah, IMDb doesn't have any box office on this.
It's from the 50s.
Yeah, I don't think they even counted back then. Was there funny accounting back in the day, you think?
Probably not as crazy as it was now. Yeah. I'm sure it was way more exploitative, though.
Yeah.
It was probably more blatantly exploitative. It was.
Yeah.
Weren't the actors? It was just like, all right, get Judy Garland out of her kennel cage so she can make 3 more movies.
Make this film for
what do you mean she's pregnant? All right, you get a day off for giving birth, but you better be back on set.
I don't think that's wrong.
No.
I don't think that's wrong. I think that's pretty much how it all happened. But this one, so let's take our audience through it. So you have reckless playboy Rock Hudson, Bob, otherwise known as Bob Merrick.
Bob Merrick, who everybody, anytime anybody sees him, it's like, oh, Bob Merrick. Yeah. Hi, Bob Merrick. Bob Merrick, what are you doing here?
Yes.
So
I'm going to start addressing you by your first and last name going forward, I think.
So he apparently crashes his boat on the lake and
needs this resuscitator, which is basically like an oxygen mask.
Yeah, it's like this. It's basically like a suitcase that has a bunch of different oxygen tanks in it, and they're like fiddling with the knobs and whatever. Oh, we got him. Okay, he's good now.
And then the cops get a thing, so they have to go to Dr. Phillips' house, and they bring the respirator
the resuscitator.
Resuscitator, yes. Right? But it's too late.
It's too late.
Dr. Phillips
is dead. Yes.
And his new bride, played by the lovely Jane Wyman, and his daughter come
home. They're all excited because the weather's great. They're going to have a picnic outside. But the doc is dead.
The doc is dead. And then they find out that it's because of evil Bob Merrick.
Yeah. If the daughter's like, well, what? The resuscitator didn't do anything, and they're like, well, the resuscitator wasn't here. We needed it on the other side of the lake to help Bob Merrick.
And she was like, Bob Merrick?
She's Bob Merrick, that son of a bitch. Nobody says curses, though, but they were thinking it.
Yeah, for sure. And then he gets brought to the hospital, Bob Merrick.
Brought to the victim's hospital.
Yes, the victim's hospital.
And all he hears is Dr. Phillips is great. Dr. Phillips is great. And he's like actually insulted that Dr. Phillips hasn't visited him.
Right, because he's the
Meanwhile, he's in his hospital bed smoking like a crazy man.
Yeah.
He's got like some sort of weird radio he's listening to. He's making phone calls. He's telling the doctor to go to hell every time he tries to take his temperature.
But then Agnes Moorehead
shows up and puts him in his place because it's Agnes Moorehead.
Yeah, I love her.
And that's when he finds out that
Dr. Phillips died because of him.
No, he finds out he died. He died.
Oh, okay.
But I think he finds out a little bit later that it was because
from the wife when she picked him up in the car.
Yes.
Yes.
Because when he first, he's like, I ain't got to stay in the hospital.
Yeah.
So he leaves the hospital, and I guess he's just walking through the woods, and he ends up rolling down a hill onto the highway in his suit. He's got an ascot and everything.
Yes.
And she just happens to be driving by.
And she's like, do you want to ride into town?
Yeah, do you need to ride into town? She put this guy lying face down on the...
in the dirt.
But he is wearing in his defense, he is wearing an ascot. You don't really...
Is that the hallmark of
dangerous
civility?
Drifters don't usually dress as nice. They don't wear ascots and three-piece suits as they tumble down hills into the dirt.
Yes. And then on the ride, he discovers that.
But the thing that's even better is he is just a total dick.
Yes.
And he's just like, hey, what's a pretty lady like you doing around it? He's basically trying to pick her up, and he's like, how about he's like, well, we haven't discussed where I'm taking you to dinner tonight.
Yes.
And she's like, I would rather you. I'm not interested in this. Blah 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 blah. And then that's how the whole story of how the doctor died. She says that she's Mrs. Doctor or whatever the hell the doctor's name was, and he just passed away because the resuscitator was being used somewhere else.
Right.
And he instantly feels like super regret. He's like anguished by hearing this news, and he's like, just let me out.
Yeah.
She stops the car. He walks like maybe
5
10 steps and just collapses.
Yeah.
So she brings him to the hospital.
Well, so she flags down a car to help bring
Yeah.
his dumbass, because Rock Hudson was tall.
He was like a
shit.
giant compared to everybody else in this movie.
I was like, wait a minute. There was that one scene when I was you've got to be like a ruler.
It was like looking like Andre the Giant standing amongst normal people.
I had no idea he was that tall. But anyway, we digress. So yes, so she flags down another car. Help me get this moron into my car. Yeah, she brings him to the hospital, and the hospital, Agnes Moorehead's trying to find him because his stupid ass is missing.
Yeah.
And then she looks out the window and she sees him like passed out in the car.
Yeah, and that's when I think
the wife finds out.
Wyman finds out that the widow finds out that it's Bob Merrick. And meanwhile, she's conducting business in the office. She's finding out all this stuff about her husband, that her husband is this super generous, nice guy. Yeah. People are coming out of nowhere.
To the point where he's bankrupted them.
Yeah, to the point where he's basically bankrupted his family to help other people. He just gives people money and
just does things
under
for free.
Under two conditions. Those conditions are, you can't tell anybody I'm doing this.
Yeah.
And you can never pay me back.
Yeah.
And he sells that to everybody. And these people are like, well, now that he's dead, I'll just give it to the widow. And she of course says, you know what? You don't owe me anything. And he says something weird like, you don't have to do it because it'll all be used up or something like that.
Yeah. I didn't know. Did they ever explain what the hell that meant?
Maybe his life? I don't know. It'll be used up by then. Something along those lines. And
maybe he made a deal with Satan and was trying to get some good juju.
There was something else going. Well, I think that was like the message of the movie, is to do these things not because you want some sort of
praise or accolades,
or you think that it's going to pay you back in the long run. You just do it to do it.
Right.
And that's where like the whole Jesus thing comes in, because when he's speaking to the doctor's best friend who tells him about the secret, and like when he first starts this thing, he's just like, he tapped into a power.
Yeah, his buddy.
When I heard that, I thought, is this going to turn into a science fiction movie?
You know, it's so funny because I think you and I both looked at each other, and you think science fiction. My immediate go-to was cult.
Yeah, or cult.
Like,
science fiction or cult.
So he's now going to be in some kind of do-gooder cult that is going to be like, oh, yes, the more good you do, the higher you'll get to your potential. Yes, you will, because that was a word that was used, right? Ascending into something. So, yeah, but I thought at some point somebody's going to get scammed for money, because apparently Bob Merrick was rich. Yeah. Although, by today's standards, he's just
they were like, why? Well, why does this guy get off being the way he is? And he's like, he's got $4 million.
And we're like, $4 million? That's nothing now.
That's like the lowest prize you win at the lottery now.
Exactly.
That's the lottery winnings you get when you're like kind of disappointed.
Yes. Oh, only $4 million.
Only $4 million. God damn it.
Yeah, and that's before taxes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, Bob really takes this guy's message to heart, and the guy's just like, he's like, but be careful. The first guy who did it got nailed to a cross.
Yes. Yeah.
So there is some
religious undertones.
Yeah, religious undertones. They never come out and say that this is like a Catholic movie or Jesus movie or anything like that.
And I don't think it was peddled that way, but yeah.
Yeah, it's not. They're not shoving it down your throat. I guess the moral is just do good for the sake of doing good and not as some sort of thing. But I think in the beginning, because like he does, this is probably the funniest part of the movie. He takes that guy's words to heart, and he decides he's just going to go have some lunch now. He goes roaring to the restaurant, parks like a jackass, gets out. And there's a guy standing there that I guess he knows. And he's like, how you doing, Jimmy?
He's got to be like some mascot for the restaurant, because he's like this portly, dumpy guy.
Yeah. He looked like he was a cab driver, like the way they dressed back in those days with the little cap and everything. And he's like, how you doing, Jimmy, or whatever his name is. And he's like, oh, not too good. My wife, she just had a miscarriage where the bills are crazy. And he's just like, that's too bad, Jimmy. And he goes and sits down. And then he thinks for a moment, and he's like, wait a minute. And he walks over to Jimmy. He's like, how much are the bills? And the guy's like, oh, it's like $300. And he's like, here.
Which to us is like,
Yeah, well, a medical bill that's $300.
Jeez.
That's
amazing.
That would be amazing nowadays. Yeah. He gives the guy $300. He's like, "Don't tell anybody I gave you this, and never pay me back." And then he turns and he sees the widow, Helen, and he's like, "Oh my God, this really does work." And he walks over to her and he immediately starts trying to pick her up again. Yeah. "When are we going to dinner?" And she's like, "Get the fuck away from me."
She's horrified.
She's still mourning her husband. Her husband just died. Yeah. She's got the guy who is like tangentially responsible for her husband's death. And he's like coming on to her really hard. I mean, there was a point where he like chases her into the back of a car, and it was basically just short of him going, "When are we going to dinner, you bitch?" And she like leaves through the other door of the car and immediately gets hit by another car.
Yes.
And now she's in the hospital, and somehow this injury, they're like, "Oh, she'll be fine, but she'll never see again. She's blind." And now this guy is like
racked with guilt.
He's racked with guilt. The daughter's like, "Haven't you done enough, Bob Miller," or whatever the hell your name is?
Bob Merrick.
Bob Merrick, you blinded my mother. Stepmother.
Because she kept calling her twice, and we were like, "Wait, what?"
Kept calling her darling.
Darling, yes. Yeah.
So now Bob, he decides to sort of go on like some like little crusade at helping people, and he helps her. Since she can't see, he just starts, I guess, stalking her, and they are hanging out on the beach with some little girl, or she's hanging out on the beach with some little girl, and he's sitting there, and she realizes he's there, and he says his name is Robbie Robertson or something like that. Yeah. Like real creative. And they form a relationship where she eventually falls in love with him. And then he starts like using his connections to speak to the most brilliant doctors. And of course, they're all in like Zurich and random European countries. And he gets them all together, and he sends her there, and he buys her house secretly and all of this shit. And at the end of it all, the doctors come to consensus, and they're like, "You'll never see again." And she's crushed. And then he finds out, he shows up. He's like, "Look, it's me, it's Robbie, and I'm going to take you out to all the things that you couldn't do while you were here in Zurich," or wherever the hell they are. And at the end of it all, he confesses that he's Bob. She says, "I know you're Bob." They love each other. They're confessing their love. Everything seems great. And he's like, "I want to marry you." And that's where she busts out with, "But I'm not worthy of you. My condition makes me unworthy of you." And I'm just baffled. I'm like, what the hell are they doing to women back in the 50s?
You know what they were doing. Stepford wiving them.
Oh my God. It's what was it? Love It or Leave Me?
Yeah.
It's all that again. It's sure you can rape me. You gave me my career. You go ahead, rape me. Oh, and then marry me too. Yeah.
Yes.
It's okay.
And beat me.
Yeah,
and beat her?
Yeah, I think he smacks her around as well.
Jesus.
And then when I finally
get rid of you,
when I finally get rid of you, and I see you're having a bit of trouble, financial issues, I'm gonna bail your ass out because he's done so much for me.
Good God, I'd be like, let me get the truck and back up over you, over and over and over again. Let me
stand in the courtroom, laugh at you as you go to prison for tax evasion, or when the mafia kills you for taking their money. That's another movie.
Yes.
Anyway, and then we continue on. She
realizes that it's Bob Merrick.
Well, she knows he was there. They know who they are. He. I guess it seems like, okay, well, I don't care about that. I still want to marry you. I'll see you tomorrow. Tomorrow comes, and she and Agnes Moorehead
walk out of it.
Go on the run. Somehow they are like in witness protection or something.
They
disappeared. None of their family, none of their friends. They don't know where the stepdaughter. Nobody knows where the hell
those two hid.
And like they don't really have any money.
Yeah. And I'm like, doesn't Nancy have a job? Yeah,
doesn't Nancy Agnes Moorehead? She's a nurse. She's like, okay, I'll go with you. Yeah. She abandons her entire life to go with this woman.
Yeah.
To nowhere.
To Mexico.
Yeah, it turns out they end up in New Mexico. New Mexico. Are they like related? Like on Breaking Bad? Are they just gonna Is Better Call Saul the one who helped them hide?
I don't know.
Anyway, she gets pneumonia after 2 years because in this time her stepdaughter is married, has had a child. Bob Merrick is now a neurosurgeon.
Yes.
He went back to medical school and interned, and now not only is a medical...
and you can tell the years have gone by because
he's got gray now.
But he never married because he's still pining for Helen.
He's still pining for Helen. He opened a wing to a hospital. He's like the head of neurosurgery now.
And he's now doing the Phillips way by saying
yes, and he's doing everything Dr. Phillips. He's just giving people money. He's not charging for medical stuff if they can't afford it. He's just the nicest guy. It's like Scrooge or the Grinch. Their heart grew eight times.
Yeah.
And then he hears, oh wait, Helen.
Dun, dun.
The guy appears, the friend. He reappears and he was like, I know where Helen is. She's in New Mexico. She's dying of pneumonia.
Yes.
They race out to pneumonia, and
they race out to pneumonia.
They race out to pneumonia. Yeah. They race out to New Mexico, and the only cure, because they can't get the guy from Zurich to come fly in. It'll be too late. Bob has to perform brain surgery to cure her pneumonia and her blindness. Because apparently,
I think that was a twofer, right? I don't think he meant to cure the blindness, but
it wasn't intentional. But somehow the pneumonia was connected to the blood clot in her brain that was causing her blindness.
Whatever that is.
Bob just saves the day, does everything at the end. She's like, "Oh my God, I could sort of see you now."
Yeah.
And he's just like, yeah, okay, we're going to be together forever.
Yeah. Yes, darling.
And then the friend is in the background, and he just sort of smiles and just like, and he walks away.
Yeah.
It would have been better if he either disappeared or floated.
Yes.
Like exited screen top.
Yes.
That would have been awesome. But yeah, there you go.
What'd you think?
I wouldn't have chosen this movie to watch. But I
enjoyed it.
Yeah, I did sit through it and I wasn't bored. I would probably say I was baffled by the craziness of it.
Yes, agreed.
And that's what kept me sitting there.
I can't believe you wouldn't pick Magnificent Obsession. And they do say this, right? The friend says it.
They say the name of the movie several times.
Do they? I thought it was just that one time.
No, I think the second time they say it, it's actually just a voiceover of the first time he
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
So yes, apparently the doing good will become an obsession, a magnificent obsession.
This was wild. I mean, he was like some crazy incel.
I don't know. I wouldn't call him an incel. I would just say he was weird. He was a rich guy who was very easily swayed. I don't know what was going on. He went from like just douchebag playboy guy who didn't give a damn to philanthropist.
Yeah.
At the drop of a hat.
Well, Helen, she made him see the...
Yeah, and that's another thing I just didn't get because...
She looked like she was 20 years older.
Yeah, she looked way older. And the thing that's funny is the daughter's husband or fiance
also
looked older than Rock Hudson.
Yeah.
Like he had the gray stripes in his hair in the beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there were some age things that were a little odd, but whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Melodrama.
Exactly. What did I mean, I've been babbling about this for a while. So.
I enjoyed it. I mean, it's a Sirk movie, so it's guaranteed to be over the top. Like my favorite is the Sandra D. Kim Novak, right? Is it Kim Novak? I think it's Kim Novak. Imitation of Life that they do.
Mm-hmm.
That is like bar none one of my favorite stories. And then is it Written in the Wind? I think that's the other one that I love so much that is just bananas.
Well, what is Written in the Wind about?
I think it's Cliff Robertson, and he's like the son of this like really rich man. And it's him and his sister, and he meets, who's the girl? Is it Lauren Bacall? I think it's Lauren Bacall. And Written on the Wind, yes. An alcoholic playboy, Kyle Hadley, marries the woman secretly loved by his poor but hardworking best friend, who in turn is pursued by Kyle's nymphomaniac sister. Crazy. So Rock Hudson is, he's like the straight guy. He's Mitch. And Lauren Bacall is the girl that marries Robert Stack. That's who it is. And his nymphomatic sister is
Nymphomaniac. Nymphomatic. Sounds like an old product.
Oh, right. No, nymphomaniac. Sorry. I'm inventing words now.
It's like Ralph Cramden selling it. The nymphomatic. Shit for the future.
Dorothy Malone is the nymphomatic sister. Nymphomaniac, sorry.
I wonder if nymphomatic is an actual word.
Yeah, it should be.
Yeah.
But so that's crazy because so the Lauren Bacall character marries Robert Stack, but he is just a freaking wreck from the start. I don't know how she fell in love with him. And then his drinking just does not stop. It just does not stop. And Rock Hudson's character is torn because he loves his friend, but he's also in love with Lauren Bacall. Mm-hmm. And Dorothy Malone is just all over. There's a scene where I think she causes such a scandal that she gives her father a heart attack, and she's just dancing the mambo all crazy, and it's intercut with all this other stuff. It's just bananas. It's one of my favorite sequences in film ever. But yeah, that's so over the top as well. So I love Sirk. Sirk, I mean, yeah. You're guaranteed a good time watching a Sirk movie, I think. And I mean, this was crazy, but it didn't disappoint. Like I said, I'd heard about this. I'd never seen it, but I was really intrigued with all the religious kind of innuendo throughout the film. Yeah. And it's funny because you don't hear that in the very beginning. In the very beginning, when he's being reckless playboy, it's just whatever. And then even the scenes with finding out that Dr. Phillips has died, you don't hear any of that angelic music in the background until Randolph comes into the picture.
Yeah, yeah.
Which, yeah, I mean, thinking about it really makes sense for him to kind of evaporate into the ether as kind of
and
I mean, presence.
Yeah, and really the way he was describing it just totally sounded like some sort of cult indoctrination.
Absolutely.
You see this lamp over here? Without any power, it doesn't turn on.
Yeah.
You tap into the power.
Yeah.
That really just...
It was nuts.
Yeah.
It was nuts.
I
enjoyed it, though.
To start, hold on to these rods while I test your thetans.
I mean, there's really no critique here for me. I mean, it's not a perfect film. Obviously, I feel like Sirk's piece de résistance is Imitation of Life. But although that mambo scene with Dorothy Malone and Written on the Wind is that's just top tier entertainment. But this was good. I mean, it was cringy, but like you said, I wasn't bored.
Yeah, I wasn't bored.
I didn't look at my phone once.
I mean, this is the type of story that could only really exist in 50s movies.
Yeah.
It's just, it doesn't.
I mean,
it doesn't
silly.
bear weight under any kind of scrutiny. So just go in, expect to see.
Yeah.
It really is like a soap opera.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like soap operas just have the most bizarre, ridiculous coincidences and plots and happenstance. And this is right up there with that sort of, that kind of storytelling. So yeah, melodrama. Just, you look at it and you're like, this is so ridiculous it would never happen in any way, shape, or form in real life.
But I love trash television.
But I mean, we don't really go to the theater to see real life.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
We want to see the fantasy and the bizarreness.
1 to 10, what would you give this crazy masterpiece?
I'd give it a 7.
I too would give it a 7. Yeah. I think it's a guilty pleasure.
Yeah, I could see this being an absolute guilty pleasure. If you like old films, if you like melodrama.
If you're a fan of Rock Hudson or Jane Wyman, definitely check it out. You get to see the lovely Agnes Moorehead with red hair. I love her. She's one of my favorite character actresses of the times.
Still don't know why she sacrificed her entire life to help Helen go into hiding.
I don't know.
Where were the funds coming from?
Was it from the sale? Because at one point she said that like all these things were they sold a house.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
So they sold the house and they were just living in Europe while she was going through this maybe experimental treatment that didn't pan out.
That's right. I guess selling a house back then really
put you
But then again, I mean, Bob Merrick bought the house for more than anybody would ever have bought it for.
Right.
Just so he could secretly give her money.
Yeah.
I guess it does. Some of the weirdness does hold up to a bit of scrutiny if you look at it.
Yeah.
But still, it's just bonkers.
It's trash.
Yeah,
it's trash. Let's be honest. It's trash, but I love it. All right. And that's it from us. And we will bid you all a
good night.
Good night.